Here's the brief news from the world over this week. In a primetime address on Tuesday, President Trump selected Judge Neil Gorsuch as his nominee for the Supreme Court seat vacated a year ago by the death of Justice Antonin Scalia. Judge Gorsuch has served on the 10th Circuit Court in Denver since 2006. During his remarks, the president described Justice Scalia as a lion of the law. Gorsuch, in his remarks, explained his own legal reasoning.
In our legal order, it is for Congress and not the courts to write new laws. It is the role of judges to apply, not alter, the work of the people's representatives. A judge who likes every outcome he reaches is very likely a bad judge, stretching for results he prefers rather than those the law demands.
Some Democrats and liberal interest groups have begun campaigning against Gorsuch's confirmation. However, no clear opposition strategy has yet emerged. More on this with presidential judicial advisor Leonard Leo in our next segment. And as Senate Democrats consider which hand to play against Gorsuch, it's been rough going for several other Trump cabinet appointees. After the most partisan confirmation vote for a Secretary of State in Senate history, Rex Tillerson was confirmed and sworn into office on Wednesday. All but 4 Democrats voted against him. Tillerson is among the list of Trump nominees that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said he would oppose no matter what, and his Democratic colleagues have joined him. The others include President Trump's cabinet picks for education, health and human services, labor, the EPA, budget director, and attorney general. The attorney general picked Senator Jeff Sessions, made it out of the Judiciary Committee on Wednesday on a party line vote and after several forced delays by Democrats. Sessions now awaits a vote by the full Senate, where he is expected to be confirmed. And President Donald Trump is putting Iran on notice after it tested a ballistic missile allegedly capable of delivering a nuclear warhead. Trump's national security advisor, General Michael Flynn, told reporters Wednesday that the Trump administration condemns such actions by Iran that, quote, undermine security, prosperity, and stability throughout and beyond the Middle East, and that puts American lives at risk. Flynn said the United States is officially putting Iran on notice. He did not elaborate on what that meant. Also causing a stir in the region this week, Iranian-backed Yemeni rebels struck a Saudi warship in a Red Sea missile attack. Rebel video shows the warship being hit and an ensuing fire. A voice off camera is heard chanting Allahu Akbar and then says, death to America, death to Israel, a curse on the Jews and victory for Islam. More on all of this later in the show. And President Trump made an unannounced visit to Dover Air Force Base on Wednesday to honor a U.S. Navy SEAL killed recently in Yemen. The remains of Chief Petty Officer William Ryan Owens were returned stateside after he was wounded and killed on Sunday in a daring raid on an al-Qaeda compound. U.S. officials report that 14 terrorists were killed and a treasure trove of intel was seized in the raid. Other reports say as many as 30 were killed, including civilians. Al-Qaeda fighters were reportedly using women and children as human shields. Owens was a 36-year-old husband and father of 3. He's been the recipient of 2 Bronze Stars and a Joint Service Commendation, among other honors. The presidential visit was kept secret, although a small group of reporters were allowed to accompany President Trump. The Owens family had requested that the visit be private and no photos were released. The death of Ryan Owens is the first known U.S. combat death since Donald Trump took office. And the president attended his first national prayer breakfast here in Washington on Thursday. In his keynote address, Trump warned that religious freedom is under threat and affirmed a campaign promise to get rid of the IRS rule that bars houses of worship and pastors from backing political candidates. But the heart of his message was the importance of religious freedom.
Our republic was formed on the basis that freedom is not a gift from government, but that freedom is a gift from God. Jefferson asked, can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gift of God? Among those freedoms is the right to worship according to our own beliefs.
Additionally, the president promised to confront ISIS, defended the administration's temporary ban on migrants as a necessary security measure, and he noted that America has the most generous immigration system in the world. He joked that the country should pray for his apprentice successor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, whose ratings are not as high as those of Mr. Trump's when he hosted the show. And several U.S. Catholic bishops are weighing in on President Trump's executive order temporarily restricting entry into the U.S. from 7 Muslim-majority countries, including refugees. Chair of the U.S. Bishops' Committee on Migration, Bishop Joseph Vasquez, condemned the president's executive order, saying, quote, "We need to protect all our brothers and sisters of all faiths, including Muslims, who have lost family, home, and country. They are children of God and are entitled to be treated with human dignity." The Cardinal Archbishop of Chicago, Blaise Supich, called the order a dark moment in U.S. history, and he added that the executive order is contrary to both Catholic and American values. Baltimore Archbishop William Lori, the USCCB chairman of the Ad Hoc Committee on Religious Liberty, says his diocese will continue to welcome migrants and refugees. He called the Trump order a step backward. And the Boy Scouts of America have announced that the group will begin accepting girls who self-identify as boys. For more than a century, the Boy Scouts used the sex indicated on a birth certificate to determine eligibility. The Scouts will now accept candidates based on the sex indicated by the parents of the child. The Boy Scouts said in a statement that the birth certificate standard for eligibility is no longer sufficient as communities and state laws are interpreting gender identity differently, and these laws vary from state to state. And more changes could be on the horizon for the Mass. Pope Francis has formed a commission to review Liturgiam Authenticum, the 2001 Vatican document that called for liturgical translations to adhere closely to the Latin of the Roman Missal. Those translations were implemented a few years later by Pope Benedict and are now heard in churches all over the globe. However, according to America Magazine, Pope Francis wishes to give voice to bishops who are unhappy with the new translations for allegedly being, quote, too rigid, and instead favor a more creative interpretation of the Mass. English language bishops spent more than a decade belaboring every line of the Roman Missal, which was later approved by Pope Benedict. Pope Francis reportedly also wants to decentralize these decisions, giving greater authority to individual bishops' conferences to determine their own liturgical translations. And I have to share something with you. This came from a school teacher in Alabama. On Literary Character Day at his school, this student decided to dress as Will Wilder, the character in my book. This made my week. The sequel to the Will Wilder book for young readers, Will Wilder, The Lost Staff of Wonders, hits bookstores on March 7th, but you can pre-order it now at Amazon.com, EWTNRC.com, Barnes & Noble, and your local independent store. The first book, Will Wilder, The Relic of Perilous Falls, will be available in paperback as well as hardback on March 7th. If you pre-order the new book now and send me a receipt or a confirmation of your purchase, I'll send you a signed book plate and a limited edition bookmark. Email me at raymond@raymondarroyo.com for your signed book plate and bookmark. Write Will Wilder 2 in the subject line. You don't even have to dress up like him. Be sure to include your address, and we'll get those out to you. I've got to send that student a pith helmet.